Now we are on.
All right, our first four. Meadow, you completely opted it out, correct? Okay. Will be Ryan, Rachel, Jalen, and Hope. So you may go to the side and prepare yourself. You don't need to bring anything except exactly what you need. You may clap when they are finished, but then quietly be prepared when the next person is ready to go. And ready when you are.
So when do I start? Clowns are scary. Clowns who brought laughter to children now bring terror to even adults. The first proper scary clown can be found in Charles Dickens. The Pickwick Paper. The clown was described as a drunk when off stage, sulking in the lanes and alleys of London. Time reported rumors of people dressed as clowns luring children into the woods in Greenville, South Carolina. This caused panic over creepy clowns spread to several states. The BBC reported a study featuring a child doctor who broadly declared, "Very few children like clowns. They are unfamiliar and come from a different era. They do not look funny. They just look odd." Now, clowns with the figure of Joker and It looming over them, they're not here for laughs. They're here for screams.
Paper straws should be banned because 36 out of 38 brands of paper and certain plant-based straws have PFAS in them, which are chemicals linked to cancer. Studies from the University of Florida found PFAS chemicals in the paper straws. PFAS chemicals were phased out voluntarily by companies in the U.S. The finding of PFAS chemicals, quote, signifies either ongoing use or contamination that continues decades after use has ended, unquote, David Andrews from the Environmental Working Group and Advocacy Organization says. Drinking straws and food packaging are, quote, textbook examples of non-essential uses, unquote, of PFAS chemicals, Andrews says. PFOS and PFOA are both found in paper straws. The two PFAS chemicals phased out. PFOS is linked to high chances of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, kidney, liver, and breast cancers, as well as a few others. Paper straws should be banned because of the risk that millions of people are exposed to by using these straws.
Have you ever felt like you've been excluded? Well, welcome to Pluto's world. Today I'm going to prove to you that Pluto is really a planet. My first point is to actually be called a planet. You have to meet 3 requirements. 1, a planet must orbit the sun. 2, a planet must be spherical. 3, a planet must have significantly cleared its orbit of other objects. If you meet the first 2, but not the third, you are called a dwarf planet. Pluto meets the first 2, but it can't meet the third because of its weaker gravitational pull. But technically, neither does the Earth or Jupiter. My second point, when the International Astronomical Union voted to reclassify Pluto, only 394 members were actually there. When they voted, 237 members voted to reclassify, 157 against, while the 9,500 other members weren't even there. In conclusion, I think it's logical to say that Pluto should be called the 9th planet.
It's exciting so far. I hate paper straws, and now I can have a good eating wine. All right, how many people have learned something already? Nice. All right, while they are preparing, the next people can get ready. That would be Lily, Levi, Chloe Campbell, and Evelyn.
I'm also learning my computer, so not always right.
Nope, you did something. If you wish, you're welcome to sit down. There's chairs over there if there's room, or that one there. So you don't have to see them the whole time. It's up to you. Just so you know, after that, it's going to be Hallie, Bree, Luke, Rebecca, and Savannah. Can I help? Okay, why don't you pause for a minute, go and sit down, and we'll have a movie first while we're singing the program.
In European folklore, vampires are undead creatures that visited loved ones and caused mischief and deaths in the neighborhoods they lived in when they were alive. The first vampire in history is called Vlad Dracula. He ruled Wallachia, Romania off and on from 1456 to 1462. Some historians show he was a just but brutally cruel ruler. He earned his nickname from his favorite way to kill his enemies, impaling them with a wooden stake. Vampires originated from demons. Historically, they are portrayed as evil, blood-sucking creatures from the past. But for the past 20 years, young adult vampire novels have become increasingly popular. Vampire books are stupid because they are overused and unrealistic.
Though in Benjamin Franklin, William Lambert, and Charles Dowd's day, daylight savings time was very useful, but not anymore. It cost the USA economy $333 million a year during daylight savings time. Daylight savings time causes a 6% increase in death rate during this twice a year changing your clock. 28 more people dead in a week. Not only does it cause all this, but it also causes shorter evenings, less daylight, winter blues, depression, seasonal defect disorder, disrupted sleep, accident increase, and more deaths. It might have worked back then, but not today. That's why we should ban it.
I'm going to have you wait, Chloe, so that you don't have somebody else's PowerPoint in your background.
I'm Hope, and I am against gun control. The Second Amendment says that a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to bear arms shall not be infringed. Never trust a government that doesn't trust its own citizens with guns. Gun control laws give too much power to the government and may result in government tyranny and the government taking away all guns from citizens. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. That is a quote by Benjamin Franklin. Clint Eastwood said that he has a very strict gun control policy. If there's a gun around, he wants to be in control of it. Gun control laws do not prevent suicides. Lithuania has one of the world's lowest gun ownership rates, but its suicide rate was the highest among 17 countries in 1999. South Korea also has a low gun ownership rate, but has a high rate of suicides and the highest rate of gun suicides in 1997. By the way, this is a quote by Benjamin Franklin. Donald Trump was the best president America ever has because he fulfilled the vision of our founding fathers of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all Americans. America gained 7 million new jobs, bringing the unemployment rate down to 3.5%, and middle-class family income increased nearly $6,000, and incomes rose in every single metro area in the U.S. He built over 400 miles of the world's most advanced border wall, causing the illegal crossing to plummet over 87%. He also showed his support for law enforcement, and since 2016, the violent crime rate has declined over 5% and the murder rate over 7%. He defended America's people's right for life by fully enforcing the requirement that taxpayers' dollars do not support abortion. He was also the first president to attend the March for Life. From this, President Trump achieved a future of greater promise and opportunity for all citizens earning the title of America's Best President.
When TV first came to India on September 15, 1959, nobody thought that within the span of less than 50 years, it would cover more than 70 million homes, giving a viewing population of 480 million. Nobody thought that there could be so many negatives to this amazing invention. Researchers have used experimental designs to explore the short-term or long-term impact of exposure to media violence on undergraduates. All the results showed that media violence caused aggression and attitudes of behavior. Another study shows that TV competes with other sources of human interaction such as family, friends, church, school, and intervenes with young people trying to develop values and form ideas about the world around them. In Norway and other countries, average IQ scores have declined slightly in recent years after rising for so many decades. They estimate that 10 years of exposure to TV lowered IQ scores by 1.8 points. All in all, the abundance of evidence concludes that exposure to TV significantly increases the likelihood of aggression, lower IQ scores, less time interacting with people, and less time building character.
Fun. Hallie, Bree, Luke, Rebecca, Savannah.
Church doesn't make you a better person. Did you know that according to George Barna, 61% of today's adults had been churched at one point during their teen years but now are spiritually disengaged? Just doing things like going to church doesn't save you, because none is righteous, no, not one, Romans 3. Works don't save you, for by grace you have been saved through faith, and it is not your undoing, it is the gift of God, not a result of works, so that no one may boast, Ephesians 2. We are not saved by what we have done, but what Jesus has done for us. The Pharisees followed the law perfectly. They looked like good people, yet their motives behind what they did were wrong. Matthew 23. Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you are like the whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones, and all uncleanness. So you outwardly appear righteous to others, but within are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. Just because you look good on the outside doesn't mean your heart is pure. So church doesn't make you a better person. God makes you a better person through church. Thank you.
Should Christians fight in wars? It says in the Bible, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God." There is a difference between murder and killing. Killing is defined as an act causing death, and the definition of murder is the unlawful, premeditated killing of one human being by another. In Psalm 144, King David says, "Praise be to the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle." Some Christians believe that fighting in wars is wrong because you are killing other people. But there is a difference between murder and killing, and God says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God."
Does being wealthy hinder a man from being a good Christian? Well, at times, being wealthy will actually help you to be a better Christian. First, it will allow you to give more money to the church and those who need it, like the poor, missionaries, pastors. Also, a wealthy person's tithes would be numerically greater than of a lower person's income, or tithes of income. Because 10% of 100,000 is 10,000, and 10% of 40,000 is 4,000. That's a difference of 6,000 that you give it to a church. And then there are some counter arguments to this argument, that if your levels of income are high, then you won't spend as much time helping the church. That is typically true of younger people, but as they grow older and retire and have nothing else to do, so they spend most of it at the church, helping the church and doing stuff for them. But less wealthy people who tend to retire later in life, they're still working so that they can afford to live, and are not spending as much time at the church. As long as God is your number one priority and money is somewhere down the list, no sin has been committed. With all this in mind, do you think that being wealthy would hinder you?
love the idea of having their hearts broken because that's basically what dating is. Courting is better than dating because a courtship is intentionally evaluating the other person as a potential spouse, often with God and community involved. Typically, the couple practices abstinence, which allows the couple to focus on spiritual compatibility instead of physical compatibility. Studies show that women with 6 or more intimate partners in their life are 3 times more likely to have unstable marriages, and 40% of those who cohabitate before marriage report lower satisfaction in their marriage. Since courting has marriage as the end goal, the couple is not casually figuring things out. Breakups are less severe because a courtship ends when the couple decides to either get married or to part ways, whereas dating ends when you fall out of love, which often leaves one party with a traumatic experience. Also, like common sense, why would you want to waste your time and body on someone who may leave you at any moment? Marriage should always be the end goal. Hebrews 13:4 says, "Marriage should be honored by all, and marriage bed kept pure." So I encourage you to court instead of date, and wait to become romantically involved with someone until you can see marriage in the near future. Because if you can't, you are dating to have your heart broken.
Today I'm going to tell you why news stations should report positive stories. A study made in 2001 found that continuously viewing the footage on the attack of the Twin Towers was enough to trigger PTSD-like symptoms. My argument is that news stations should report more positive stories than just the constant flow of information that causes angst and division in our society. I'm not saying that the news stations don't need to report truth. Instead, I am simply stating that they should report good things in addition to the bad things they're reporting. Because alarming headlines get more attention, news companies often end up focusing on the disastrous facts instead of the positive ones. This can definitely affect your mental health and harm an average outlook on the world. This is why I believe that news stations should report positive stories.
All right. Phoebe, Caitlin, Dana Spivey, and Bria.
The great rule of conduct for us in regard to foreign nations is in extending commercial relations to have for them as little political connection as possible. George Washington. Let's take the Vietnam War, for example. It cost 58,000 American lives, 300,000 Americans wounded, and $141 billion. And what did we gain? Absolutely nothing. During the 1800s, there were 52 cases of Marines being deployed to foreign nations that had nothing to do with the security of our homeland. In the 1990s, the U.S. government adopted as part of its foreign policy the belief that U.S. troops should be, quote, peacekeepers, sent to occupy other lands to keep warring groups from killing each other. The idea sounded good, but it turned out that the more American troops were used to occupy foreign lands, the fewer were able to defend America.
Wearing a mask to prevent COVID is like putting up a chain link fence to keep out mosquitoes. The pores of a cloth mask are 1,000 times larger than the diameter of COVID droplets. It has been proven by many studies that there is no correlation between mask mandates and the spread of the virus, and one being a 2021 analysis, which in fact found that states with the strictest mask mandates had the highest COVID cases. Masks are also harmful. Over 30 studies have found the accumulation of toxic chemicals on masks, and there's a 50% decrease in bacterial infections when masks are omitted. So not only are mask mandates inefficient and unsanitary, but they provide a foundation to weaponize the virus against American liberty. It is a fundamental human right that I should be able to decide for myself whether to wear a mask or not. If I can't, then you are violating my freedom to evaluate my own health risks. Mask mandates also open the door wide for government interference. Where will we draw the line? James Madison once said, if tyranny and oppression ever come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy.
Why the U.S. should help smaller countries. Before World War II, Hitler demanded Czechoslovakia to give up a portion of their land. Czechoslovakia didn't really have a choice because if they refused, they would easily be invaded. They gave up the portion of their land, but Hitler ended up taking the rest anyway. A similar thing happened to Austria too. Germany wanted Austria to join the Third Reich, and if they said no, they would also be invaded. Hitler took over more and more land, and they grew more and more strong. While these things were happening to the weaker and smaller countries, the United States, France, and England didn't help the countries. If they had, Germany wouldn't have gained as much power, and maybe they could have stopped Germany before World War II could have happened. The U.S. should help smaller countries and protect them from bigger countries that they can easily be invaded by. Smaller countries have resources that bigger and threatening countries can use against us. These are some of the reasons why the U.S. should help smaller countries.
When Christianity is taken away from schools, also other religions should be taken away too. From Christianity.com, Brandy Porterfield told Fox News that her 7th grade daughter was learning about Islam as part of world history. In her class at Spring Hill Middle School in Murray County, Tennessee, the parent said, quote, "They did this assignment where they wrote about the 5 pillars of Islam, including having the children learn the Shahada, which is the Islamic conversion creed," unquote. Also, the parent asked the teacher about similar lessons about Christianity and Judaism. She later figured the upcoming lessons were on Hinduism and Buddhism, except that the other upcoming lessons wouldn't be learning the students wouldn't be learning the conversion creed for those religions. Why Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism as replacements for Christianity? Well, I'll let you answer these questions for yourselves. Thank you for your time.
Tate, Priscilla, Daniel, Buck Hawkins, and Christine.
I think that large companies should only be allowed into small towns by a town vote, because for one thing, it'll get more crowded and it'll take you longer to get places when there's a lot more traffic. And also, the land prices will go up. For example, in Rutledge, when this has almost happened, the land prices have gone up 5 times as much as they were before. Thirdly, crime will increase. In bigger cities, crime tends to be a lot higher than in smaller cities. So that's why I think that large companies should only be allowed into small towns by a town vote.
How would you feel if your government mandated a vaccine that is both ineffective and fatal? The ineffectiveness of COVID-19 vaccines approved by the Israelites. The Israeli government implemented a law that required nearly all citizens to get vaccinated. Just a short time after the mandate, positive test results, hospitalizations, and deaths of COVID skyrocketed, wrote the Washington Standard. According to VAERS, which reports only 1% of injuries, just 14 days after the vaccine was approved for 5 to 11-year-olds, 106,000 of children that had been vaccinated reported an adverse reaction. That is approximately 1 in 10 children. Another statistic showed that by October 2021, jurisdictions had reported more than 30,000 hospitalizations and 11,000 deaths had occurred among the vaccinated. These statistics outweigh any health safety mandate the government wants to implement. To forcefully mandate a vaccine that has so many extreme side effects would be genocide among the American people.
There are a little over 4 written historical accounts of Tiberius Caesar, a prominent Roman emperor, while there are innumerable accounts from even non-biblical sources for a poor carpenter named Jesus. Publius Cornelius Tacitus, an ancient Roman historian, admitted that Jesus was a historical figure when giving the source of the word Christians. Gaius Plinius Caecilius Secundus, a Roman magistrate, wrote a letter to Trajan, the emperor, asking how to justify the punishment of those who worship Jesus as to a god. Flavius Josephus, a Roman-Jewish historian and military leader, in saying that James was the brother of the so-called Christ, verified that Jesus was a real person. If I were to list all of these sources, we would be here all day. The events that occurred in the Old Testament can also be easily verified. Fish fossils have been found on mountaintops as high as Mount Everest. The only possible explanation for this is the biblical flood. The Ipuwer Papyrus lists 6 of the 10 plagues God sent to Egypt. In a tomb in Egypt, missing its bones, a statue with a long-sleeved coat of many colors was discovered. With all of this evidence, it is impossible to say that the Bible is not true.
Every American should stand during our national anthem in honor of our flag and what it represents. Firstly, it represents over 1 million men who have fought and died in defense of this nation. Jesus said that there is no greater love than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends. Thus, to show these men honor and respect is, as Abraham Lincoln stated, both fitting and proper. Secondly, standing for our national anthem is a sign of unity with each other and that we live in one nation together as one nation under God. Which brings me to my final point, that we should stand in honor of our flag and national anthem because our nation is founded on the unchanging truth that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. I would like to conclude with a simple story. During the American Revolution, when it first began, there was a young man named Nathan Hale who was hung for spying for the American colonies at the age of 21. His final words were, "My only regret is that I have but one life to give for my country. It is for this same country that we stand in honor of our national anthem."
Does archaeology prove the Bible? Well, yes and no. While the Bible cannot be proven 100% true by any means, archaeology has verified the historical authenticity of many biblical events, people, and places. Archaeologists have uncovered and confirmed biblical sites such as Jericho and King David's palace, and from seals and inscriptions discovered, we can confirm the existence of biblical characters such as King Nebuchadnezzar and kings of Israel such as Hezekiah, Jeroboam, and Jehu. Other archaeological discoveries from other nations such as Syria confirm biblical events and even mention Israel. One of the best archaeological discoveries is the Dead Sea Scrolls, which contain all of the old portions of all the Old Testament books except Esther, and confirms that the Bible's text has remained constant over many years. So while archaeology can't prove the Bible 100% true, I believe it can and will continue to verify biblical events, places, and people.
Wow. Congratulations. I didn't miss anybody, right? Any of you moms want to come up and give one? Bravo. For one, bravo for sticking with your time limits.